This is a Henkel's knife. It is an 8-inch knife. It's made in Spain, not Germany, but they still get good prices. The ones in Germany get higher prices, as we found out. But this actually is an 8-inch blade, and it's sold for $40. This is a very cool cowboy hat. It's got mesh sides for air conditioning. It's very stiff. It's made out of like a velour material, made in the USA. But it does have a lot of marks. There's a mark here, some little stains throughout. So we took an offer of $30 on this. This is a Franklin Cowboy Old English leather briefcase, doctor's bag. It's quite nice. I had this up for $159, but got an offer of $100, and I took it because I do not have the shoulder strap here, which people were asking about, which is kind of an important part of a briefcase like this. So I was happy to get $100 for it. This is a vintage 70s Lazy Susan that holds 8 tracks. I'm pretty sure it holds 8 tracks, yeah. I think it can hold regular cassettes too, but it's pretty awesome. And it sold for $30, global shipping program. This is an Audi Sport North America hat, Le Mans series. We found a bunch of hats by someone who worked at Audi. There must have been like 15 of them or something, so we bought all of them, and they've been selling on our new store, which is exciting. This sold for $25. This is a vintage Italian bike helmet. I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was a little bit more high-end than it is. This company makes very high-end stuff, but this one is not as fancy. It is from 1989. It has a date on the inside, which definitely makes it vintagey. But this sold for $40, so that's still a great price for something that's not as fancy as I thought. This is a Uniden power adapter for a portable phone. I find them all the time at the thrift store for almost nothing. I don't go crazy with them because they do not sell for very much and they do not sell very fast. But I happened to pick this one up and it sold for $10. This is a camping porta potty, and my mom, when we were growing up, had an RV, a little RV, and we used to have one of these for when we went to craft shows for the RV. So I knew that they were worth money. I knew people paid over $100 for them. This one looks like it was actually never used, just stored, which is great. And I sold it for $86 to someone in the global shipping program. So it's going to be quite a thing to pack, but I do have a box for it, so it should be good. These are a pair of vintage 1980s Nike sneakers in a very cool pattern. I found these at the thrift store. They cost me like $1. We, at the same thrift store, found an older pair of men's Nikes a couple years ago, and they sold for over $200 because they were from the early 80s. So these ones caught my eye because they are from the 80s. They're not from the 70s. The 70s Nikes, which are the original Nikes, have like a cursive logo. This is definitely from the 80s, made in Korea. And they have like that waffle on the bottom. And these ones in particular, the reason I'm talking about them so much is because they are a rare find. I've never seen this pattern before. I'm not like a sneakerhead or anything, but that to me looked like a rare pattern. These are not wearable sneakers. The insoles are completely hardened and crusty. And we said that on the listing. We were very clear. Somebody bought these within 20 minutes of me posting for $300. So that's a good sign that there are major collectors out there for things like this. This guy, I looked on Watch Count, and he buys vintage Nike stuff. He's spent at some points on auction for men's 1970s Nikes over $1,000. These are not worth $1,000, I don't believe, but they are definitely worth $300. This is a vintage army hat, and it sold for 20 bucks. These are a pair of Panhandle Slim cowboy boots with lizard skin. I do believe that's what this is. And I had them up for $125, and we went back and forth with this one guy like all day on a price, and we finally settled at $81. These are a set of faux leather little covers for golf clubs. They're totally junky, actually. I think we bought them with a bunch of other ones, but they sold for 20 bucks. This is a very cool duffel bag by Outdoor Research, and according to the tag, it's supposed to hold a tent, some kind of tent or something like that. You can see it's got this heavy-duty kind of vinyl or rubber that's on the inside too, which is nice. But we buy duffels for pretty cheap at the thrift store, so we had this up for $60, but it doesn't have the shoulder hook or anything, so we took an offer of $35, and Jay was just like, let's do it. These are an amazing pair of vintage Wrangler super yellow jeans. We found these at a crazy thrift store on the back roads in Florida that was an old motel and had been turned into a thrift store. I think we bought them for $1, and they sold for $40 to someone in Florida. So they're going back to Florida. This is another key wallet. Very vintage. It says Peter Bain for Pioneer. It's leather. It feels like really nice leather. Actually, it looks like shell cordovan, but I just can't tell if it is or not. I think that it would say shell cordovan if it was. And this sold for $19. This is a vintage faux wood realistic brand weather radio. It's just a simple, that's how you turn it on. On the back there's a knob where you can choose the station, and it's got an antenna that goes up, and this sold for $36.99. We always get weather radios, they always sell. This is a mixed set of 16 pieces of, some is stainless flatware and some is silver plated. But the cool thing about these is you can see it says USN, which stands for U.S. Navy. And some of this silver plate is Reed and Barton, which is kind of a fancy brand. We paid at a thrift store 10 cents each, so that's $1.60, and we sold it for $50 in our new store. This is a Dirt Devil Power Reach handheld vacuum. It's got a thing in front, it's got a brush, you know, the roller brush. And I usually get these really cheap, $5 and under. And a lot of times they're cheap because they need the belts replaced, and they're really easy to get replacement belts. This one was fine, and it was $5. And it sold for $40 on our new store. I just packed this up all nice and neat, and I forgot to videotape it. So this is the tripod that sold. It's brass, and I think it's mahogany. It's very pretty. It did have a like wooden telescope looking thing on it, but there were no lenses. It was just this like wooden cylinder on there that we took off because it was just junky. And we sold this for $150. This is a beautiful vintage paint by number of people making maple sap for maple syrup, and it sold in our new store for $60. These are the two diaries that we sold for $65. This one is from the 30s and 40s. Pretty cool. And then this one is a trip from the US to England in the 50s, as you can see. Very, very cool, fun to read. And they sold for $65. Super cool vintage Montgomery Ward all silk tie, sold for 20 bucks. This is a vintage Boy Scouts of America shirt. It's got some really cool patches on it. Yeah, those are neat. And it sold for $40. These are a pair of LL Bean men's slippers made of real shearling. And these sold on Bonanza for $46.99. This is a towel bar by Kohler. Pretty fancy towel bar in oil rubbed bronze. It's a 24-inch. And I sold it on Amazon for $50. This is a very cool Cuddy Sark Scotch whiskey pitcher. It's got this great shape and it's definitely awesome. And this sold on our new store for $36.99, global shipping program. Okay, this is a classic America Online mug. The thrift store that we go to has a big box of mugs that are free because they get so many mugs, they just give them away for free. So I always go through that. This also sold on our new store, and I just listed it the other day, so it was just a couple days ago. And it sold for $25. This is the vintage Schoolhouse clock from General Electric. I love it. I love the blue seconds hand. That's pretty awesome. And this sold for $90. This is a Tasty Freeze hat. It's a wool blend snapback. Pretty awesome. And it sold for $37. This is a Dickies brand, made in the USA, so you know it's vintage. Men's work shirt, and it sold for 25 bucks. This is a lovely vintage straw hat with a ribbon. It's definitely vintage. Let's see. Size 7. And it says size 7 there. It's real straw. And straw hats can go for a lot of money. This one sold for $50. This is a vintage Dressmakers Ham. That's what they call it. It's the shape of a ham. I've never used these for sewing or anything, but it looks like you iron with them. And we found a few of these actually, and they're quite popular. This one sold for $25, global shipping program. This is a vintage top grain leather briefcase or suitcase. We had it up for, I think, $70 around there, but we took it off for $40 because I wanted to get this out of storage. So I was like, let's just move it. 40 bucks, good to go. This is a big old Louisville Slugger gear bag, and I think we had this up for $60 and we took an offer of $40. Again, same reason. It's big, it's taking up space, so I'm happy to sell it. We got it for probably like $1 or $2 and 40 bucks. This is a new in box. It's cookie cutters in the theme of a video game called Portal 2, and you can see them there. I've never played that video game, but Jay knew of it, so we got them, and they sold for 20 bucks in our new store. This is a lovely gun holster, hand-tooled leather. I don't think it's ever been used. It's beautiful. It's a Sam Brown, and we sold it for $50. Global shipping program. This is another German rucksack that sold for 25 bucks. This is a vintage Singer sewing machine pedal. Some of you might recognize this from your own vintage sewing machines. This sold for $25, global shipping program. That's it for this week. See you next week. Bye.